What's the good word, Joe? It's your boy DKB here. So a lot of people were impatient. I was getting texts. I was seeing people commenting on various videos in threads, etc. People were pissed that the Jets weren't very active in day one. It took until I guess around 12 a.m. Eastern time for things to really start kicking off. But the Jets did end up making a flurry of signings, and to be honest, originally I didn't like these at face value, but the more I kind of thought on it, Joe Douglas played this very smart, right? It's interesting, the tactic for day one of free agency. Normally you're going to see the big $100+ million contracts fly off. Joe Douglas took the approach of building up the meat and potatoes, the bones, the structure of this house for the New York Jets. And I honestly think this was the best way to go about it, especially considering there were slower markets at wide receiver, slower markets at tackle for positions that we can still attack with a full head of steam heading into day two. So let's recap some of these day one signings here. To kick things off, the bread and butter, Tyrod Taylor. We now have our backup quarterback. A lot of the talk earlier in the offseason was going to be the New York Jets having a hard time finding a quality backup, because you essentially know, minus an injury, you're not getting a starting opportunity with Aaron Rodgers being at the helm for the New York Jets. But we found a way to pull off a move, and for Tyrod Taylor, it works out perfectly for him. He was recently with the Giants, so he's not going to have any kind of crazy move, huge adjustments he has to go through. We are his 7th or 8th team heading into his 14th season in the NFL. So one of the things you're going to love is his ample expertise of having to master different systems with as many teams that he's been on and as many offensive coordinators as he's had the pleasure of working with. So you love the adaptability. Everything that I've heard from a lot of the teammates from various teams he's been on has spoken highly of Tyrod, right? This is a guy that felt like, much like with Jacoby Brissett as well, right? He should have had a solid starting opportunity elsewhere, and in Tyrod's case, he did. You think about his days at Rex Ryan, at the Bills with Rex Ryan. The name of the game with Tyrod has really been untimely injuries, right? But for what we're getting in a guy we hope we don't really have to see unless it's garbage time, unless we've already secured a playoff, a first round bye, etc. We're getting a 13-year vet. 58 starts, I believe it's like 96 games overall he's been a piece of. Douglas did have a connection to Tyrod Taylor previously with the Ravens, where he kicked things off. He was backing up Joe Flacco for the first 4 years of his career. And ultimately, from a field standpoint, you're getting mobility with him, right? A chain-moving passer. This isn't a guy that has that Jameis Winston gunslinger mentality, but he's going to get you up and down the field as long as you have the pieces in place. And he takes his calculated deep shots, right? Jets X Factor broke down a little bit from him. I saw he had 17 big-time throws in 2023 for a guy that only got to play in 5 games. So pretty solid. We have him on a 2-year deal, according to reports. I haven't seen what any of the numbers for any of our signings have officially looked like just yet. But you can guarantee at this point, we're talking about, again, depth piece signings here. We're not breaking the bank for any of these guys, so we should still have a significant chunk of change. And for what it's worth, I believe he was with the Giants on the 2-year, $11 million deal, so that's probably somewhat of the similar framework he'll have with the Jets. Now, Javon Kinlaw, this was a guy that I predicted when I mentioned him and possibly Quandre Diggs joining the roster, so we already kind of have the breakdown for him. But the high-level overall info with him is he's had, in 2023, his first fully healthy season of his career. That brought along, keep in mind, in a rotation role as a backup piece, a career year in most metrics. So this is a guy that's swinging in a positive direction, but you can't really lean into that. For the New York Jets' sake, it's a positive because he essentially is a equal, if not better, replacement to Solomon Thomas, another guy Robert Saleh has been able to kind of rebuild and get some better value out of as we've seen him progress. So Javon Kinlaw maybe follows that, where we get him on continuous 1-year deals for a 2 to 3 year stint before he ultimately ends up cashing in or moving on. But 26 years, we're just getting him in his prime again, fully healthy. He played 476 snaps last season, while he had a lot of those career high marks. Coming out of draft, was praised for a lot of the power that he was going to bring to the interior. Obviously, we had that solid 49ers connection. I think that was really what kind of sealed the deal here. And you're talking about looking at him, right? It's a 1-year deal. You really want to see him just come in and be a disruptor, right? Even with him not fulfilling his first round prophecy with the 49ers, one of the things you love is that when you did see him, he was effective enough in the pass and run game, which is something we weren't necessarily getting out of Solomon Thomas until lately. If you remember bringing him in, it was really either porous in the pass game or porous in the run game, depending on where you put him, and then average generally at best in the opposite corresponding area. Javon Kinlaw's a lot better all around, I would say. So we'll see how that move ultimately pans out, but I think it looks good on paper. And then our final signing, we finally addressed the offensive line. John Simpson, former 4th-round pick, turned starters, kicked things off with the Raiders before going to the Ravens last year. Looks like a projected low-end starter. I would say potential backup guard depth, right? To me, this screamed of a guy kind of like Nate Herbig, right? This is a guy that maybe you don't expect much out of, but when he actually gets out of there, you can see a lot of the improvements that are readily able to be made, and him consistently getting better as things go on. That would be the best news for the New York Jets. But ultimately, it's really hard to get worse than what we got out of Laken Tomlinson. I would say ultimately this is an upgrade, even if he truly does become the starting left guard. That's where he's played most of his career snaps. 19-game starter for the Ravens last year, only allowed 1 sack, 31 pressures. He does have a penalty problem. Had about 10 of them last year, 6 of them holding. But you love the durability, right? Played almost 1,200 snaps last year. He's being brought in on a 2-year deal, so we'll kind of get a pretty solid head start if he turns out to be a well-equipped player to stay on this line long-term for the New York Jets as we look for solutions. But one of the things that is great here is he still has the potential to get a lot better, right? You think about the Ravens as a team that is going to ask a lot of their offensive linemen just by virtue of having Lamar Jackson back there, all of the various things that they try to do with him. We have a mobile quarterback, but it's not going to be to the same extent. So he could probably hone his craft a little bit further, a guy that's known a little bit better. And it's interesting, I see some people say he's better as a run blocker. Some say he's better as a pass blocker. I don't think he necessarily has a calling card per se, and there's still a lot more to dive into. But definitely love this signing. I would definitely give day one, I would probably have to say maybe an A-, right? I don't want to oversell it, but realistically, you already figured out your backup quarterback spot. You brought in a potential value deal as a starting guard, and then you replaced a need at defensive tackle. Obviously, there's plenty of more moves to make, but potentially not having overspent, as well as finding yourself a starter and 2 viable backups. Doesn't get much better than that, right? At day 2, I would say definitely start looking out for the tackles. We probably won't be the first ones to sign a major player at that position, right? Joe Douglas is not a guy that's known or seems interested in the least of setting the market when it comes to situations like this. He seems like he'll either stick to his numbers or he'll kind of play according to what the market is showing based on some other scenarios in real time. So we'll see. Let me know what you guys think about the signings ultimately, and I'll catch you guys again. Peace.